in order to shut down the ivory trade, we have to shut down the demand, the consumer side of this trade. And it's not just the ivory trade, it's the trade in rhino horn, pangolin. There's a growing trade, can you believe it, in lion parts at the moment. The African lion has now become rarer than the rhino. There are less than 20,000 lion in the wild today. And that's partly been driven by a trade in lion parts. It's also down to loss of habitat and the persecution of lion because of human-lion conflict or livestock conflict. So this trade is ultimately stimulated by the demand that comes largely, sadly, from the consumers in the Far East. So getting international governments around the world to legislate and to really clamp down on this abhorrent trade in animal parts is critical. And so for China to make its move was really, really important and hugely welcome. And as a result of them closing down the domestic ivory trade, the price of ivory dropped significantly straight away on that move. So here in our own country, the UK government is in the process of introducing a ban on the ivory trade. We need to be able to demonstrate that, having ivory, trinkets, ivory pieces, should no longer be acceptable.
You've spoken about China and what they've done and stepped up in the UK. What about other governments around the world? Should they be doing more? And I'm thinking about America. There's going to be a change of administration to Biden, but they have an attitude there to wildlife which is quite different.
During President Obama's period in office, they did introduce a ban in domestic ivory trade. Different states have different laws, and so, for instance, California has a much tougher regime on ivory than other parts of the states. So they have made those moves, but in other areas, and we saw that President Trump wanted to withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement. I mean, hopefully we'll see President-elect Biden reverse that. I mean, he's committed to doing that. So there are these sort of contrasts that exist, and but that said, America, the American government is a big investor in conservation through their USAID program and their US Fish and Wildlife Fund. So they are making a significant contribution to conservation. Globally, but specifically in Africa as well. And philanthropy is huge in the States. We have some of our biggest donors for Tusk are on the state side. And we are immensely grateful to the philanthropists that support us across in America.
Looking back now over the 30 years, Charlie, what do you think the single biggest issue in your mind that conservation has faced, the biggest challenge?
On the one hand, illegal wildlife trade has been a massive issue. But actually, probably the biggest challenge that is coming down the track is loss of habitat. Africa's human population is set to double from 1.2 billion to 2.4 billion by 2050. The pressure on land and wilderness areas and forest is going to be immense. It's already there. And wildlife has to have landscape and habitat and ecosystem, functioning ecosystems within which to survive. And particularly the great megafauna like elephant that migrate over big distances. We are in danger of these species being confined into smaller and smaller parcels of land, islands, if you like. And so, to me, it is about protecting landscape and protecting landscape in such a way that people, communities can coexist alongside wildlife, so that we can keep the corridors open so that, elephant, giraffe, zebra, whatever, can migrate between, these areas. Because without that, we really are in trouble. But the other issue that comes along with the human pressure is human-wildlife conflict and mitigating the pressures on communities who are facing, the issue of elephants raiding their crops, or lions and hyenas and other predators taking their livestock. Those are the real challenges that we really have to face.
Tourism has been very hard hit by the global pandemic. How worried are you that with people's concerns, job losses, economies in debt, that conservation and climate change will go down in people's minds?
I think that is a real worry, that we know there are millions of jobs and livelihoods in Africa that have been impacted by the loss of tourism as a result of the pandemic. We also know that many rangers have either lost their jobs or have had their salaries cut by up to 80% because of the loss of income into the parks, the conservancy fee, the park fees. The wildlife departments are struggling with their budgets for this year. And the prospect of tourism bouncing back in any quick time is just doesn't seem likely. So I know that the tourism industry and the wildlife industry, our own conservation world, we are very worried about the impact of this pandemic rolling on through 2021 and potentially into 2022. And so we've launched a $10 million campaign specifically geared to ensuring that we can protect and restore the jobs and the livelihoods of rangers on the front line.